Tell Us About Yourself is sponsored by bonusround.ca, streaming Canada's classic game shows on demand. Dive into the golden age of television with thousands of episodes of Canadian series that defined an era from anywhere in the world, all for just $1.99 a month. From iconic shows like Let's Make a Deal and Definition to cult classics like Bumper Stumpers and The Mad Dash, bonusround.ca brings you timeless entertainment that's fun, enlightening, and affordable. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, relive the magic of Canadian television history. Subscribe now at bonusround.ca for $1.99 and turn every night into Game Show Night. By Game Show Forensics. Join host Robert McKee and his crack team of forensic game show scientists as they take you on the deepest dives imaginable in a quest to analyze the most detailed minutia of game shows nobody else dares to, or cares to, investigate. Nothing is too whimsical for examination, no semantics too absurd for the research extremists at GameShowForensics.com. Parental discretion is advised. And by The Inn at Leola Village. Nestled in the heart of picturesque Pennsylvania, the Inn at Leola Village is a sanctuary of luxury and relaxation. Indulge in the timeless beauty of their historic suites, each meticulously designed to transport you to a bygone era of elegance and grace. Experience the culinary delights of their award-winning Italian restaurant, where every dish is a masterpiece crafted from the finest local ingredients. From romantic getaways to corporate retreats, the Inn at Leola Village offers a haven for every occasion. Unwind at the spa, stroll through the lush gardens, and let the stress of everyday life melt away. Make your reservation today at theinnatleolavillage.com or call the front desk at area code 717-656-7002. The Inn at Leola Village, an oasis of luxury. Tell Us About Yourself. Conversations with Game Show Contestants is produced in partnership with the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York, one of the largest history museums in the United States, and one of the leading museums serving families with highly interactive exhibits and programs. Since 1968, the Strong Museum has been dedicated to exploring the ways in which play encourages learning, creativity, and discovery, and how it illuminates cultural history. And their National Archives of Game Show History. Founded by industry veterans Bob Bowden and Howard Blumenthal, the archive is home to thousands of artifacts representing over 80 years of broadcasting, including props, set designs, video interviews with game show professionals, and other iconic elements from the history of television at play. For more information about the National Archives of Game Show History or the Strong National Museum of Play, visit museumofplay.org or call area code 585-263-2700.
Blue 35.
We've met before, but let's meet again. Tell us about yourself.
Well, can you tell us about yourself?
Perhaps you fill us in again and tell us about yourself.
My name is Ryan Vickers. I live in Newmarket, Ontario, Canada. And amongst other things, I am the host of Canada's National Academic Quiz Show, Reach for the Top.
Ryan, you are a special person to me in this circle of game show friends for many reasons, but one of them is you were one of the first interviews, if not the first interview I ever recorded for this podcast.
Do you know it's been almost 2 years? I was thinking about that the other day. It would have been
2022, right?
September 2022, yeah.
Wow. And that was even 2 months before the show premiered. I had just had the Zoom meeting with the people at the Strong, and it was a conversation about how BuzzerBlog could promote the museum, you know, what we could do. And I had this idea like sitting in the back of my head, and it was like double dutch. I was like waiting for the right moment to like jump in there and say it. And I did. And they loved it. And I was so excited. Like I started working on it right away. It might have even been the next day, Ryan, that I messaged you and I said, I'm doing this podcast. Do you want to be on it? And you were one of the 4 preview episodes I sent to the people at the Strong just to show them that we were
Oh,
kind of
I
getting
didn't
this
even
thing in
realize
motion.
that. I'm very honored.
Yeah. And of course, it was fantastic. And it was at a point when I don't think I even realized what the shape of this thing was going to be. You know what I mean? Like I had this idea to talk to contestants, but it didn't really go much further than that. And it took a few episodes for it to kind of take shape. And even now, I don't even know that it has a definite shape. It's really just conversation, and sometimes it's an interview, and sometimes it's not, and sometimes it's funny, and sometimes it's not. But you were one of the first that I ever recorded, and it was after recording your interview back in September 2 years ago that I really felt like this was going to be something cool. So thank you for doing it the first time, and welcome back.
Thanks for having me back, and thank you for letting me do it the first time. I can tell you I'm alone in my apartment this time because my parents said I was visiting my parents the time we were doing it, and they said, "Yeah, we heard it all. We heard it all." So, I mean,
Oh
one
no.
side of it, right? So,
Was there ever a point in your life where you were embarrassed to be the kind of game show nerd that you are?
I mean, not really. Sometimes I downplay it because I think there's the odd time I worry I'm coming off as too strong. But then I guess the point of reference to me, I'm not a big fan of the Big Bang Theory, but I feel like that's the show that sort of hit the zeitgeist of, okay, it's cool to have a very specific knowledge base of something. And I think that show opened it up. I didn't realize it was fictionalized, but I think a lot of us, especially those in game shows, can see ourselves in a lot of those characters because we're very proud of what we know. And, it comes in handy now and then too.
Interesting, because I am not a Big Bang Theory fan either. I actually don't think I've ever seen a full episode of the Big Bang Theory. But I know about it insofar as much as it brought nerd culture into the mainstream. But as somebody
Yeah.
who never really watched the show, I thought Big Bang Theory did that in a comical sort of way. I don't think I
Yeah.
ever realized that there was actual validity to what they did for nerd culture. I'll be honest, I always thought it was places like Facebook and Reddit where there are these like these groups of like-minded people for just about every interest there is in the world. And at this point in the history of the internet, there are like these very richly there's like a lot of lush vegetation in those groups. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they are communities all their own.
And
That's
I
honestly what I attributed that to.
and I also feel like too for personally for me, it goes back before that. One of my good friends in the game show community for a long time is a gentleman named Nick, who I can't remember we talked about last time, but we bonded over a love of Fort Boyard, which is really a French format. It's been exported over the years around the world, and then it went to Crystal Maze in the UK. It's legally the same format, but you wouldn't know that unless you know that. Anyway, and Nick and I first met up in 2000. We walked around the town he lives in and whatnot, and then I saw him again 2 years ago when I was in the UK, and we sat down and had some cheeky Nando's, I guess you would say. So,
Oh, Nando's is delicious.
yeah,
Corey and I, when we go to MagFest in Baltimore every year, it's like a retro game and music convention. But
yeah.
Corey and I always seem to have some kind of project that we're pitching around that time.
Mhm.
There's a Nando's right next to the convention center. Delicious.
I mean, and I'm happy you enjoy it. I am a vegetarian, but I'm not one of those people. Tony's not one of those people. You want to eat a steak in front of me, Christian? That's your choice, no problem. But I enjoy things like Nando's has, fake chicken, so I can enjoy it vicariously.
I don't think I knew you were vegetarian. Is that a lifelong thing?
No. So I went pescatarian, so that's veg plus fish. I want to say 5, 6 years ago, and then about, I don't know, three and a bit ago, I went vegetarian. I will admit to you, Christian, when I end up in Newfoundland, I have fish and chips. Do not send the vegetarian police for me, and I don't think that's the worst thing in the world to do, but I did it
Sure.
for some lifestyle and health choices, and for me, it's meant a little bit of a less grocery bill, and I enjoy it, and So it makes me happy, and it does make it, I mean, fast food choices in Europe, as I found this summer, so much better than North America.
Oh, for sure. And especially these days, I feel like there are so many fast food chains that have a vegan or vegetarian
Yeah.
or meat alternative option. Was it an ethical decision or was it something else?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, Christian. I stepped on the scale one day in 2019 and I was like, we're not doing this number anymore. And I have a
Yeah,
really good friend I've known for years, and he'd also been my personal trainer. And knowing someone for a number of years, that he can sort of motivate me in a different way, I find. And he helped me develop a meal plan, and I'm actually down 70 pounds since 5 years ago. So.
that is incredible, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations. I swear,
Thanks.
I had no idea.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's a little more than I was aiming for, but it's nice, and I like doing I knew you've probably seen at one point. I go on and on about a group called Park Run, which I absolutely adore, and I did my 100th 5K completion of a 5K completion last Saturday actually. So I'm really happy, and my friend Dave, who you met about a year ago as well, I got him into it. He also we did anniversary the same day, so he did his 50th, and I did my 100th last Saturday, our local park run, because we were told if we don't do it our local park run, you're not welcome back. Not seriously, but But it's just
Incredible.
something that I discovered. I hated running as a child. I will be the first person to tell you that. And I quit soccer because I'm like, oh, so much running. But I don't know. I found some kind of peacefulness. And as far as athletic pursuits go, you throw on some trainers and you go for a run, right? It's a little cost effective too. So because opposed from scuba diving, which I enjoy, which is a little more costly, I've discovered over the years. So I buy
Right.
hair, Christian. I'm not quite right. So
I have found great motivation in entertainment while exercising. I was always very gym averse,
mhm.
and it was the environment. I think it was a level of intimidation because I don't I've always been somewhat overweight like my whole life, and it's kind of yo-yoed, it's gone up and down, but was always, I think, to a certain degree intimidated by that environment.
Yeah.
um Getting older and realizing that everyone is there for themselves, nobody is there for you other than you,
Hmm.
helped me get into it. And being able to listen to things and watch things while I'm on the treadmill, while I'm working out, um that has been a great source of motivation for me to like get off my ass and go to the gym. What do you listen to while you exercise?
So if I'm training with my buddy, hey Jesse, we just throw on kind of upbeat music. There are days we put on cheesy 80s pop synth kind of thing. There are days we just have 90s rock on. He'll throw something on. And there's the odd time, if Gangsta's Paradise comes on, I'll then request Amish Paradise gets played afterward, to give Weird Al his equal time.
Sure.
I tell you what, for me, it's funny you mentioned about the gym. I went one time to a gym and I just couldn't do it. It wasn't my scene. But when I run, if I run on my own, so when I do my park runs, if I run, it is the soundtrack to the 1999 German movie Lola Rent, or known as Run Lola Run, with Franco Batente, who was in the first Born Identity movie. I can't tell you why, but that has been my jam for 25 years when I used to run in university a bit around the track. That gets me going to the point now where I do my local park run. I don't have to look at my watch. I know roughly where I am in my run, if I'm a faster pace or a slower pace. And that's fine. It's just about, finishing up and having a good exercise. But I love that movie, Christian. It makes me so happy. And they re-released it for the 25th anniversary, and I drove 50 miles to go see it on a Wednesday night, and I was one of two people there. But I got it
Wow.
done. I enjoyed it, and to see it on the big screen again with that thumping soundtrack. I mean, it's kind of like why I trekked into Toronto yesterday to see The Luckiest Man in America, because I wanted to get my pressure lux fix on the big screen. Sorry, I didn't
Yes.
mean to turn it there. So,
No, no, no.
but
That's okay. Because I do want to talk about that. I want to talk about your experience seeing the Press Your Luck movie. They announced it on my birthday this year, which I felt I know it wasn't specifically a gift for me, but that's how I took it
hey man, years
because it
ago,
makes me
Celebrity
happy.
Mole debuted on my birthday. I'm like, thank you, ABC.
Right.
So,
Right. It makes me happy to think that that's
mhm.
how it went. Um, Run, Lola, run. I'll have to check
Uh,
that out. One of my
I I
resolutions,
I love it.
yeah,
Please do. It's 90 minutes and it's got it like MTV style from 1999, and there's a certain quirk to it. But it's well done, and it's European art at its finest, I find.
wonderful. Yeah, one of my resolutions for myself this year, not necessarily New Year's, but just in general, I want to take more people's recommendations for media because
Oh,
I
nice.
find that on my own, I sort of, and maybe it's old age or something else, but I mean older age. I'm 35, but I find myself
46,
settling
buddy.
into. I listen. Yeah, I would never be able to tell, Ryan.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
I find myself settling into the same media over and over,
Yeah.
almost like
Mhm.
as a sense of comfort. I talked about it with Jeremy last week. Like we're talking about how um, we don't really watch a lot of what we used to watch. My viewing
Yeah.
habits have changed significantly to the point where it doesn't seem like I'm seeking entertainment. I think I'm seeking comfort or I'm seeking background sound to accompany whatever else I'm doing in the house. If it's editing, if it's cleaning, if whatever. Um, so
You
yeah,
know
I want to
what?
do that for myself. I want to like see and listen to new
I
stuff.
get where you're at. It's funny because we talk about the traditional TV model, and I watch some of that. I mean, I am a big fan of Amazing Race Canada. Season just ended, and I sort of shifted over that from US Amazing Race. I just find uh, it's a Canadian thing. The last few seasons, they've only gone in Canada. But I mean, someone suggested last fall that I watch The Traitors. I was like, I don't know about this. And I gave the Canadian series a try. And what they did up here in Canada is they filmed the English Canadian and the French Canadian series back to back, same production company, same location, same host as well. So, you'd see the similar games. And I am currently on US season two, and that's my 11th series worldwide watching it since last fall. I cannot get enough of that show. I love the end game. So I'll recommend that as well.
The traders. I'm building a list of media
So just
recommendations.
it's funny. I know we're doing this audio wise, but your gateway into it, New Zealand season one, and the most unhinged series is Australia season two. I'll leave it at
Okay.
that.
Okay.
I'm not going to
Wonderful. I'm
spoil
I'm glad
anything,
I'm
but I
recording
will tell
this.
you, as far as a non-traditional game show, I love how they develop the end game in that format. I think it's brilliant, and that's why I keep coming back for that last episode.
In your mind, what is the difference between a
Oh
traditional and a
boy.
non-traditional game show?
I mean, I know we use the term shiny floor show. I know
Right.
that's kind of what they use now. I feel traditional game show is almost, it's got that um I think it's more the turnover of the contestants, perhaps. I mean, that's one of the defining things, whether you're self-contained or you have continued run like Jeopardy. Whereas there's a bit more story arc with something like Amazing Race or The Traders, I find, because you have that investment in the players week in, week out. I mean, I won't say which show it was that I did a number of years ago, and I got on the show thrilled about it, but it was a 9-page application, and I was on air for 6 minutes. And I feel it's interesting how things have shifted that way too. But I think the more traditional things are the ABC reboots, well, the CBS reboots, the NBC reboots, the Fox reboots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that are sort of that self-contained half hour, whether it has continual winners, continual champions, whatever you want to call it. I think that's sort of the big defining one for me.
Sure. I think about a lot of the British series that are on these
Oh,
days, and oh, in, the UK just has the greatest game shows. There's something about the way they produce their shows that speaks to me. I think about Richard Osman's House of Games is
mhm.
a wonderful show. Watching that show for me is like spending an hour in a crossword puzzle book. Do you know what I mean? There's something about it that just feels so enriching and
Mhm.
so engaging. I mean, it is doing puzzles on TV, but there's just something so comforting about that.
And I think there's something about the British game show style too, where we're doing it. the money's good if you have a show like that, but you look at a show like House of Games, which I know is celeb driven, I get that, but a countdown, even back in the day, a 15-1 with William G. Stewart, it's much more about the pride. And we've talked about this before, and I know you bring this up, where the prize is the show.
Sure.
But we're going on. I was on a radio game show up here a number of years ago, and I won a pen. Like that was it. And that was for half an hour's of work, but I enjoyed it. And, they invited me. That was the first time and the only time I've ever done a tournament of champions. I was thrilled. They told us because we did the best, we got to come back three of us over the 9 episodes, and the 10th episode was sort of the finale of the season. And then we got there like, yeah, no, we just like you three the best. I'm like, oh, cool, thanks.
That's wonderful. What an
So
honor.
yeah, it really was. And then I won two books, and I think one was by Kevin O'Leary, and I couldn't wait to give it away. So I got
Sure.
it. So
Mr. Wonderful, my ass.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
He, uh, my wife and I really enjoy Shark Tank, um, mainly because there is a level of emotional investment in Shark Tank. But it seems to me that of the reality shows that are on TV,
Oh,
that's
I
one of the.
oh no
Ooh,
that
tell me. No, go.
no, I just when I watch Amazing Race, it's just an adventure game show. Have you seen Treasure Hunt with Annika Rice?
I have.
So when I was a kid in the 80s, we lived in the UK for a year, near Swansea and Wales in the Mumbles. And I used to as a 6-year-old, I was allowed to stay up and watch Treasure Hunt on Monday nights. And that's what I see like Amazing Race. So I guess for me, it's harder to call it a reality show, but that's just a personal thing. And I know I can either like it or lump it. And I choose to like it or love or like it or detest it. I choose to like it because, it gets them on the air, right? So.
That's true. Yeah, and the definition of reality TV seems to be ever changing set of criteria for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I consider, how would I describe it? I mean, because a lot of it is not reality, so to speak. There's a lot of pre-planning and there's a lot of chemistry that goes into building a lot of these shows, and I'm sure
I think it's the whole
positive.
like the Emmy distinction between like factual reality and competition reality. I'm like, competition reality is just another word for a game show. We're just calling it differently because they're, 100 years on for game, 90, 100 years on from game show starting. There are still some people who don't like, oh, it's a game show. It's not de rigueur. But I was like, wait a minute, we have movie stars and bigwig celebs hosting these reboots, right? So, people want their piece of the pie.
Right. That has never really gone away. I was listening to a podcast. It's called the Carson Podcast. So
Oh, I know of, yeah.
it's yeah, and it's a series of people who have some connection or affinity for Johnny Carson.
Mhm.
And Pat Sajak did an episode, and he talked about when he first got the job on Wheel of Fortune. He said at the time, which was we're talking about 81, 82. He was concerned that he wasn't the type of game show host that was in fashion at the time. And he said that all the game show hosts on the air were like hey, you won $10,000, like
Yeah.
that kind of cheesy voice. And I think about it, and I think about 1980 to 83, and I can even expand that to from like 73 to 83. The number of game show hosts that fit that criteria or that would match that description is so few in my mind,
Mhm.
compared to some of the others. I mean, I think about some of the great hosts, our American top five. We don't even have to go into my name. You know who I'm talking about.
Mhm.
But so many of them are not that. And I
No.
wonder just what made that stereotype stick so much.
That is an excellent question, Christian. I'd like to pass to my opponent. No, it's not that kind of show. Okay.
You know what
Um,
I mean, though? Like,
yeah, it's really interesting about that, right? Because we see formats come and go, and especially, I mean, I feel stuff like a Press Your Luck or a Match Game, you need to be attached to the old format, but you need to bring it into the the current day. But I don't know. I think maybe because especially in the 70s, we all know like 70s and 80s. I mean, I'm older than you, I get it, but you didn't want a fake sick to be home. But man, even with the fewer channel choices, it was just chock-a-block game shows. And
Yeah.
especially, and being that we were close enough to the US border, we'd get American affiliates and Canadian affiliates. And sometimes you get your daytime wheel at 10:30 or 11, and you had that choice. It's like the whole, which you get wheel first or Jeopardy first. And when I grew up, the American, the American affiliate showed it Jeopardy and Wheel, and the Canadian affiliate showed Wheel Jeopardy. We're like, good, we got our pick of the litter, right? So,
Yeah, sure, you get to make your choice. Yeah, it's just I just feel like it does that art form such a disservice. You know what I mean? Like there's so many different flavors of talent, I think, back then when we
oh,
talk about those kind of shows.
absolutely, right? So,
You
and
know?
they're legends in our mind, and not a few. It was funny. I was before I saw the movie at TIFF yesterday. I was talking with my friend, and I said, it's weird for me to think that of the hosts of, for me, the sort of three of the biggest shows ever of my life, Price, Jeopardy, and Wheel. It's not that I don't want to include Family Feud, but it's gone through so many hosts over the years. Like I grew up with Ray Combs, for example, right?
Sure.
Only saw Richard Dawson through Game Show Network reruns, etc. But I mean, Wheel retired because someone told me that there's Ryan Seacrest is not the original host of Wheel of Fortune. This surprises me, only a week, right? So,
What?
yeah, exactly. What's with this Willery fellow? Um, Wheel of Fortune, the longest serving host, retired. And on Jeopardy and Price, we always thought Alex and Bob and Pat would be there forever. And we only one of the three, unfortunately, is still with us, right? It's like
Right.
the Queen. The Queen was always going to be around. And I got my new passport last week and it says, something that you reference the king. I'm like, that's right. It's been a couple of years. He's the king, you know. It's odd.
It is. It's something that when you are a fan of this type of TV, you never really internalize until it becomes fact. You know what I mean? Like you don't prepare yourself for when Alex Trebek passes away or when Bob Barker
Yeah.
retires. They and I don't know if it's just the fact that they're on 5 days a week, we're used to them, or if it truly is the quality of their work or the quality of their style of communication that makes you feel like they will be there forever.
I mean, I think it's a mix of both, right? So,
Yeah.
and I'm curious to see where we go with Wheel and Jeopardy with I know the Pluto feeds are down right now and there was like awesomeness of the retro stuff. So I'm curious to see where that goes, right? So
Yeah, sure. It's hard for me to imagine the new generation of hosts staying on for 20, 30 years. I mean, I think
I
about
mean Drew's at
seeing
17, right?
that will always blow my mind. And to me, it will always be 10 years. It's always been 10 years since he started hosting The Price is Right. My brain will just not let go. You know how people of a certain age think of 2000 as 10 years ago? Like I'm stuck. I'm just stuck on that.
Yeah.
Because you think about, and I talk about this sometimes with my game show friends, like take his timeline and put it up against Bob's timeline. At this point in Bob's career, it was the longest running game show in history. You know
But
what I mean? Like he was there for that long. That's how long Drew has been there.
but Drew also will hit half of Bob's run in the next year or so, right? Because Bob did
Unbelievable.
35 and Drew's at
Yeah.
17, right? I believe it's
Yeah.
17. It might be 18. I don't know exactly. I'm not on countdown. Leave the math alone, okay? No, I'm
No,
joking.
wait a second. Wait a second. Let's figure it out. Okay, so he started in
Yeah,
oh
fall
seven.
2007.
So,
So yeah, fall
oh my
2000.
gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, 17. Yeah.
Se
So
17 years. There are
and
kids who
and
have
yes, I knew this
no,
was coming around.
you know?
Get off my
Well, I was
lawn.
yeah, right. Well, I was talking to he goes by JSAC online, but Jacob Sacklebin, he was
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the Superfans episode. Yeah, you know who he is.
yeah.
And he was one of those people that has not much of a frame of reference for the original Price is Right.
Yeah.
It's
But I mean, I
it's a generation gap.
I like Price as the next person, but my biggest Price time watching started in the early 90s when the daytime shows were dying out. We didn't, in the 80s, it's not that it was a bad show, but I probably was watching Scrabble, Sale of the Century, feel like sort of the word games were, well, not, well, I guess Sale's not a game, but I mean, Sale has always been this wonderful mix. It's Jeopardy meets The Price is Right, right?
Oh, sure.
So,
Sure. And Jim Perry, who is,
oh,
who's one of the coziest hosts
yeah.
ever, I think.
It's yeah, it's one of those things, right? And I know with Reach, I don't necessarily have a Jim Perry style, and there's the odd person I model my work after. But it's you got to find your own voice that way, right?
You're right, right, right. I don't remember if we talked about this the first time you were on the show, but being a game show host, was that your ultimate dream? Was that like at the top of that list for you?
I mean, when I was a kid, yes, absolutely. And I remember in high school, oh boy, we would do, I think we did the newlywed game with dating couples at my school. You got to understand, love my school. We were 250 kids top to bottom, a graduating class of 41. So it was a small rural community. And I still love it. The high school closed 8 years ago, and I'm still holding on to that bitterness, Christian, not gonna lie. So anyway, that being said, we did that. We would do reach for the top matches, student versus teachers, and I would help organize tournaments in my school. And I think one of the crazier things we did is we played Double Dare one day. And again, no one knew what Double Dare was. It didn't air. People are fascinated to hear that we didn't get Double Dare until the 2018 reboot. It just didn't air up here. We got other game shows through YTV, Nickelodeon, Nick Arcade, Guts, Wild and Crazy Kids. I mean, ostensibly a game show, but there we are. But we did that. I had to explain it. I remember there was like dog food involved somewhere, and then I got a pie in the face. I got chased after with a pie, and I just took it, and then went home and tried to clean off the t-shirt I was wearing and put like sprayed like the fabric softener or something in my eyes. It wasn't the best day of my life. So, but going back to your question, I mean, that's something that I always wanted to do. And my origin story with Reach is that I played it and then I coached it and then I had some time off for my full-time job and I kind of knocked on the door and here we are 14 years later and I've been hosting for the last 11. And it's like I tell people, part of it's having Alex Trebek's old job, but I feel I was talking to someone about game shows the other day and they're like, we can't believe you do that kind of thing. He said, that's what you were made to do. And I said, well, it's I like to do a lot of promotion. Reach isn't my full-time job right now. I'd love it to be if the opportunity came up. But we find things in our life, Christian, is that we find things in our life that make us happy. And I mean, the last couple of years for my life, doing a lot of traveling and a lot of game show stuff has just been nothing but pleasure. And I can't wait to see where things go from there. I mean, we were talking about the traders a bit. I was lucky enough, I cashed in all my airline points, I went to New Zealand and Australia for 3 weeks earlier this year. And we were up diving in the North Island, New Zealand with my friends. And we took a half an hour to go off-roading. We went to a very specific mountain lodge and I went up there and they said, "Do you have a reservation?" I said, "No." "Let me explain why I'm here." And I explained, "I'm from Canada. I love the traders." "Did you literally just come to see us for that?" I'm like, "Well, we were passing through." So they gave me a tour. And you know what? A lot of people say to me, "Why did you do that?" I'm like, "Because it makes me happy." And it's not like I'm in New Zealand every day, right? So
Yeah, sure.
going to Tipping Point and I was brave enough. I'm not brave. I was, assertive enough to ask, "Can we get a picture on set?" And they let us have a picture on set in front of the huge coin pusher machine, like just things that you don't expect to happen. But as I said before, you got to manifest these things and ask for them because you might as well, right?
Sure.
YOLO, all that.
Right. Yeah, well, you
FOMO.
absolutely only live once for sure.
Yeah.
I asked the question about being a game show host and
Oh,
whether that
sorry.
was
Yeah,
like the
I really
ultimate thing
went
for you.
off course
No,
there
that's
tonight.
okay. No apology necessary. But I asked that question because I have wondered more often in recent years what happens when you live that dream. So you've dreamt for so long of doing this thing, and now you're
Yeah.
doing it, and now
Mhm.
you've been doing it for a really long time. Do you ever give thought to what you want to do next in your life? Is that ever a source of anything other than joy for you?
You mean like does it concern me when I'm trying to figure out my next life steps?
Does it concern you? Right. Do you ever have that concern?
At times, yes, I'll be honest with you. Trying to figure out where I want to go, how I want to balance my life. Some days it's, well, this is a park run I want to get done, but it's a 6 hour drive. How am I going to accomplish that? Which sounds sort of facetious, but I mean, I've always been the kind of person that goes out and goes for it, right? There's a concern. Would I would I like to, do I feel the wrong Ryan is hosting Wheel of Fortune? Well, I mean, secretly, yes, but I don't think I don't
You're not
think it's
alone in that.
but having seen the premiere, I'm thrilled what they've done with the show. But no, I mean, it just what I want in life, Christian, more than anything else, and this is not saying selfish, is that if I go tomorrow, not looking for that to happen, mom and dad, in case you're listening, we're good. No worries, it's all good. Um, is making sure that I've done everything I wanted to. I always joke for a while, I'm like, no, we can't go now. I've got a vacation in 6 months. I'm looking forward to visiting my friend in the Caribbean, right? That kind of thing.
Sure.
But I've joked with my friends that at my funeral, I want the 4 minute YouTube clip of me talking about my love of game shows to be ad nauseum rerunning. And that is genuinely, I've told friends, I'm like, that needs to play at my funeral. And I'm not trying to turn this to morbid, but that's also part of figuring things out, where you want to go and where you want to be at things. And I found in my life, like the game show hosting didn't really come sort of the traditional way. I did college radio and whatnot and thought about doing full-time acting, and I just didn't. I mean, to do extra work, my hat's off to those people. I've done it a few times. I mean, it's pretty cool. I've done both Kids in the Hall and Degrassi, so I'm part of Canadian lore that way. But I do it for fun when I'm offered that chance. It's more of a one-off, but it's not something I look to do full time, even though I have a drama degree. But I want Reach to. I would 100% want to host Reach until don't have the capabilities to do it. And part of it too is things like growing it nationally, whether at the grade 7, 8 level or the high school level, getting involved provinces that haven't been around a while, the territories. My dream is to get all 13 provinces and territories for an online tournament. That is 100% the goal. Not that I'll hang it up at that point, but that made me even happier than I am right now. Did I
One of
answer the
the
question?
Oh, you sure did. You sure did. Oh, absolutely you did.
Oh,
One
can I
of
actually, you know
Oh,
what? Can I
yeah.
can I tell you a quick story?
Yes,
You were
please.
talking about where things are going. And you and I have talked both on this podcast and off the air about opportunities. And
Right.
you and I have had various chances to interact with Mark Summers. So when I was growing up, I didn't get Double Dare, but I saw, the odd vacation we stopped and saw an episode or parts on YouTube. And when he announced on a podcast with, I think it was Eliza Schlesinger, I'm saying her name hopefully correctly, that he was doing the one-man show in Bloomington, Indiana, I was like, I'm driving to that. And we made friends. I had a friend doing a documentary. We got invited to the backstage crew, and then we become friends with the people. And I might have told this before, but I mean, since we've talked last, one of the greatest opportunities and joys of my life happened in that the director of the show, when it went off Broadway for 16 weeks earlier this year, said to me, if I'm running a Broadway show and I need 200 questions to use in this Broadway show, how does that happen? And I say, I do them when you need them by. And the fact that I got to write material that was performed not only off Broadway, but also by someone that I really respect as both a broadcaster and a performer and a game show host is nothing short of spectacular. And all of that, there's these little nuggets. You've got to start that ball. It's Christian, how often do you make a snowman or a snow person, I should say? Do you make it once a year, maybe?
Strictly once a year, no more, no less.
Okay. It's like when you have to roll that snowball, you start with that little bit. and you roll it, and you roll it, and you roll it. And I feel like that's what a lot of my life has happened, is everything snowballed for me, but also because I keep that opportunity open. So I think what I want going forward is me not to personally lose the passion of doing things that make me happy. And I realize there are bills to pay, there is rent to pay, there is, I don't know what it is in the US, but in Canada, we have this ongoing conversation about how expensive the groceries are. And there are groups on Reddit that are fully events. They boycotted one of our national chains for months. And it's continuing in the media. But I also want to do things that makes me happy. Why I have, as I look over to my right, I have about 20 new thrift board games sitting in a corner, having not been played. You know, that's
Yeah.
we'll reschedule that event when you're going to come up at some point, I promise. So, but
Oh
I
God,
mean,
I
I
would
think a
love to.
lot of
Yeah.
it is sort of to bring it back. Is it just going to figure out what I want to do in my life? And my life has changed because of weird things. I found Park Run because my friend Kay in New Jersey and she's originally, or she is British, but from the UK originally. She told me about this thing, and that was in 2019, and I've done 100 of those since in 8 different countries. My goodness, I took an overnight bus from Paris this summer to go to a specific town in the Netherlands just to do a specific park run because I wanted to check it off my bucket list.
It's
So,
wonderful. That's
yeah,
wonderful. Just living life to be happy.
it
And
is.
yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at. Like I've had several moments over the past couple years where I've begun to not rethink my list of goals for myself, as in, I don't know that I don't know that I want them, but more of a reassessment, more of a taking stock of those things.
Yeah,
It,
I've
it
done
just
that. I
happened to
agreed.
me
Yeah.
more. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just happened to me more often. And, game show host was always like, was always the top thing. And I came to this realization over the past year or so that I don't know if I want that dream in the same flavor as it's always been for
Hmm.
me. I don't know that I want to deal with networks and audiences and ratings, and I don't know that I want that. And it's fascinated me how much fulfillment there is to be had in pursuing the elements of that dream rather than the dream itself.
I think part of it for me too is that, you know what? Here's the comparison I have. When I took time off from my full-time job that I was working in 2009 for a year, I said to my buddy who I've known for umpteen years, he's I guess my dive buddy, right? Can we say ride or dive instead of ride or die, I guess? Ride or dive.
Of
Yeah, my
course.
ride or dive. Um, and I said, I want to go be a dive master in the Caribbean. He said, you can do that, but kind of be careful what you wish for. And I remember, and he said, you might lose your passion for it. And I think, Christian, maybe what you're getting at, and sort of I'm in the same thing, is that maybe we're not doing it full time, but we're doing it enough that it makes us happy. I think of friends, they say, we run a game show night for us. Absolutely. Can we pay you? I mean, if you want to pay a few bucks, fine, whatever. Just, feed me and maybe give me some adult beverages. Um, but it makes,
Several adult beverages.
well, it depends on what game we're playing. And I mean, if you want to play match game, there's something involved in that, right?
Oh, yes.
Um, but it's doing those things, and I think being appreciated for the skill set you have. And we're recording this podcast over Zoom, and we were all stuck at home for a while. We do these game show things for each other. And yes, we're all cut from the same cloth, I get it. But these are the things, and for me, it's not just the game show stuff, but it's doing the public speaking. Um, one of the things that I got to do is someone at my volunteer position this summer in Europe, they gave me a megaphone 3 days in a row, and my friend that I'd made, she's like, "Oh, he doesn't need that. He doesn't. We're good. Don't give it to him." Right? So, but
Right.
I
It's
tell you this, I've told you this before. I'm gonna say this again. This is one of the most, thank you. I'm happy to come back on. But one of the things is talking with you, Christian, and I will echo, at the time of this recording, I have heard Jeremy's episode for Second Chance. And it's the same thing. the opportunity to talk with you. You have grown. Not that you were horrible at the start, but I know it's finding your footing because I know you've done other podcasts, whether you've been a lead or a co-host before, is you're really good at what you do. And that's not trying to inflate your ego, Christian. Not what I'm doing, but I want you to know that I appreciate you. And I'm not the only one that appreciates you for the skill set you bring and also opening up, thinking this great idea because it's fun to talk with you. If you didn't set a limit on this, we're going to talk for 3 hours tonight in part 4 of our interview, right? So
That's right. This will be like Frost Nixon.
yeah, that was a great movie, by the way. I really enjoyed that.
It was a good movie. Yeah, that was a fascinating movie. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that.
Remember me in 2026 for third time around or third time's a charm, whatever you call it. Okay.
3 on a match.
3 on a match. Yes.
That'll be it. That'll be it. I love it.
We'll put a pin in this. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, just you hit on that idea that I've had in my head. That idea of doing it enough so that it satisfies that itch. You know, my friends and I created this game show marathon thing over a decade ago.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older and as I've grown as a person.
Thank you for not saying matured, because none of us have.
Oh, no. Still as immature as ever. But as I've grown, as I've gotten older, and I've developed a career completely outside of the field of entertainment and game shows and all that. It's the only other thing in my life that's gone as well as it has, so I feel like there has to be something to it. But getting to that point, I've realized more that this, I think, is going to be the way that dream manifests itself. I think I'm going to do that once a year. I don't think I'm going to be the host of Talk About every day. I don't think I'm going to play Press Your Luck on TV every day. I think I'm going to do it once a year as a celebration of this thing with other people who have also wanted to do this thing. I think that might be the final realization of that particular goal. And that's perfectly okay because, like you said, there are so many other opportunities to pursue the base elements of that particular goal. Do you know what I mean?
And
did I always want to be on the Price is Right? Did I always want to be a game show host? Sure, that sounds like fun. But to break it down, did I always want to be somebody who knew how to dress well, who knew how to communicate with anyone, make a friend anywhere he went? I think I might have wanted that more than I wanted a career in front of a camera. Do you know what I mean?
And let's be clear, Christian. Two things on that. Number one, I feel like we're both at the point where if a game show wants to put us on, as we said last time, we will happily go on your game show. Not a problem. Would you agree on that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. And number two, I think it's almost like that summer camp feeling. You go and you have summer camp and you know what it is. And there's that escape from almost that reality escapism, right?
Sure.
It's that bubble. I mean, two things, point 2A is that, you are aware, and some of the listeners may know that I had the pleasure and a once in a lifetime opportunity to volunteer at the Paris Olympics this year. And that was summer camp. That was living in an Olympic bubble. Because for me, nothing could go wrong. There are things that did, but it didn't let me phase me because I was lucky enough to be at Stade de France for track and field and rugby, or athletics and rugby. And I mean, in between my shifts, I could go watch the event. I'm like, this is insane. And every day, you could not wipe the smile off my face. It was impossible. Also, when you're one of 45,000 same dressed people running around Paris, you're going to get questions. And that's fine. And you want to represent, however you represent the Olympics, right?
Right.
And
right.
it's that thing. And the other thing that I get to go, and at the time of this recording, in 12 hours from now, I will be back at my little summer camp at the CBC. And that makes me delighted. And I guarantee you, no one is more excited than to walk around an audience with a garbage can collecting granola bar wrappers than Ryan Vickers.
Sure.
Because it makes me so happy to be part of that show.
Well, it's like that old joke, right? It's the person shoveling behind the elephant, and somebody says, "Why would you do this job? Why wouldn't you quit?" And the guy says, "What? And leave show business?" Like any opportunity to get in there, get
Mhm.
in there.
And I love the job I do at Feud. I really, really do because I get to interact with different people each day, and some who come back year in, year out. I had a great time. So there's something called Ryan Meetup, and I heard about this a couple of years ago. And it turns out I was in New York City the weekend. They started it, and they've had 12 events in the States, and they never had one in Canada. And they had one in Toronto last weekend. So I went in, and there was 40 people named Ryan in that room. The musician, a Ryan. The guy selling poutine, Ryan. Leading the charge, Ryan. Now we were visited by someone from the Council of Andrews. I didn't know if that was a test. I did ask Ryan about that, but Ryan said it was okay that he could stay with the Ryans. I bring this up because someone came over to me. Do I know you from vegan events? I was like, no, I don't think so. And we chatted, and it turned out he'd gone to see Feud a year ago, and he recognized me from there. And I'm not on air for that show, but I mean, I must be doing something okay, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There, in my day-to-day line of work, I work in hospitality. At our hotel, when you check out, every guest receives a survey. And one of the questions on the survey near the end is, was there any one employee that impacted your stay in a positive way? And we have this incentive system where if you're an employee and you get mentioned by name in that question, in the response to that question, you get a gift card. And we don't have name tags on property. It's just it's a stylistic choice.
Oh, so
That
do they
you
have to
don't get.
ask your name then?
Well, not well. If they want to know your name specifically, they have to ask. The idea is that we introduce ourselves to these people.
Oh, I got it.
Um,
And so,
but
okay.
right, and that to me is a mark of a job well done if they remember your name after that simple interaction. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
that's the mark of having provided good service and having provided something that that guest is going to remember. I'm just thinking about what you said in comparison to like what I do day to day.
Yeah, but
Um,
but I know hospitality is, that has some game show elements to it, right? Because here's our next contestant staying at our hotel. We want to make sure you have a good time, right? You're not necessarily asking them what the capital of,
Oh, for sure.
France
For
is,
sure.
right? So,
And people might laugh at that, right? People who, somebody working in
well,
the
they
industry might think
stink.
of that.
They
Well,
shouldn't be
right.
laughing.
Right. But you know what I mean? I think somebody in the industry could hear that and think like, "Oh, that must suck to have to, resort to that." But again, I am fulfilling the elements of that particular goal that spoke to me. Like
Hmm.
as a kid who grew up with a stutter, to be able to communicate with so many people um at this point in my life relatively effortlessly. It used to take a huge like mental costume change to become that person that can converse. And as a result, I was my own worst critic for a really long time. And it just burned a lot of fuel to be that person. And I think that as a person gets older, you develop confidence in yourself and just who you are baseline. And it translates into the way that you communicate with people. You're not trying so hard to have them see you the way you want them to see you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because you have to be the person you want to be. I mean, I struggled a bit in junior high and high school because my, family member had a quite prominent position on the school board. And I remember just thinking it took me a while to acclimatize because kids can be cruel sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And and I had times where people, would yell at me because they didn't get a transfer to the city high school. Like I went and talked to my family and was like, "Excuse me, I don't like this person. If you don't mind, deny it for them." I was like, or people thought I had grades given to me, and it stunk, right? But it's all about being the person that we want to. And I mean, I people knew I was the game show nut from day one. We used to have enrichment classes. I got to go enrichment classes once a week, and they had I can't, and maybe we mentioned this before, but we had Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, Family Feud, Classic Concentration on the Apple IIgs.
We did talk about it because that was my first computer too. It was an Apple IIe.
Yeah,
We did talk about this.
yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, it's all I tell you what, if it took a lot of sort of finagling my finances to be away from my permanent job. And I actually, and this is not a brag, I did the math. I had 609 days away. And that's an incredible amount, just shy of 20 months.
Sure.
I regret nothing. I would do it again in a heartbeat. You make these things, and my mental health is so much better. Well, I still have my up and down days. I think we all do. And I think that's a lot of what being stuck at home and not having our creature comfort for, well, a couple of years. I don't like to think about those times. That's part of our lives. It's going to be in the history books, right?
Right.
But doing things like the running or putting a podcast on and just going, I'm really lucky. I'm a 10-minute walk from a forest. And I go walk in the forest and just put a podcast on and I just forget my troubles. And it's just finding the happiness in your life. And I know I sound some kind of preaching some kind of mantra, and I'm not trying to. I mean, it's just game shows have always made me happy. Once in a while on Facebook, I'll post, tell me a silly or funny game show memory. Like give me a clip on YouTube because I'm having a crummy day. And we all have that. Let me flip the table on you, Christian, for a minute.
Yeah.
If I asked you right now to give me a silly game show moment that made you laugh, not necessarily at the person. Well, I don't want it at the person, but with the person. I'll tell you mine if you can tell me your clip. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, you're not putting me on the spot at all, but there are so many. Give me yours, and then I'll give you mine. Can we do that?
The one that sticks out for me, for happiness, I can watch Sam Murray's $1 Million Question during the turn of 10 when Meredith fakes him out and turns out he's got the right answer. That's for sheer happiness. But the one that I go back to time and time again is the US pilot for Takeshi's Castle in 1992. And the lady is, for those of you who don't know Takeshi's Castle, it became MXC, I guess, is the most prevalent US version that ever happened, if any, I guess. And she's on a slight incline in a little rolling bucket, I guess, and she's got to do a math problem. But the little boards are on stands next to her, and it sort of pops up. And the idea is when you get to the end of this course, the universal characters will ask you what's the answer, and it'll be like 2 times 5 plus 7 plus 4. And there's a chiron on the screen. It hits it out, and most people just give the answer. And then she just rolls down, but the way the brakes hit, instead of the penalty was you being dumped in a pool of water with a little layer of mud on top. If you got it wrong, she just flipped over the front.
The castle, go!
Check the concentration. Check the form. Check that grip. Check that head roll. Check, please.
And I can watch that for days. And I don't know why, but every time I giggle like I'm 5 years old because it's the silliest thing. And she realized, and that's the fun of game shows, especially something like that when we're not, not playing for earth-shattering types of money. And that's what I like hosting Reach. If I'm at the local level or we're playing a game at the provincial tournament, it's important. I get it, but we can be a little looser. When I'm hosting a national championship game, this is serious. I consider myself a firm but fair host. But this is important, and the jokes may not develop themselves, right? You got to give me one, Christian, because after we're done this, I'm going to go watch it on repeat. But give a few if you want. So
I'll give you 2, and I might even think of another one while I'm talking about the 2. But okay, first one, match game. There was a super match where the prompt was there's a blank.
Oh, I don't know this one. I thought you were going to do Kook, Fred, and Ollie, so that shows me what I know. So
that's a great one, and I got in touch with her for the podcast, and she went radio silent on me.
Oh, no.
I know. I'm still going to try.
As in didn't even say no thank you?
Yeah, didn't say no thank you.
Okay,
No,
but that's part of the fun of this, Christian. I know.
There is still hope.
If you let me, I'd give you 25 more suggestions, right?
I have one to tell you about that I'm only going to tell you about after I stop recording.
Got it. Okay, cool. Oh, by the way, tell me your funny moments, but I want to say sorry to off rail it, but I got to say this right now.
No, sure.
I adored the John Hatton interview. It was everything that it could have been, and your statement with Jeremy about feeling this is what we need to preserve is absolutely true. It harkens me back working for Canada's game shows and finding someone who had been on 6 shows by just playing the context, right? And trying to get a hold of them, but not in a creepy way, obviously. Anyway,
Sure.
so kudos.
Thank you very much. That was an honor to be able to preserve that. And I don't know if I mentioned it when I talked to Jeremy, but John now has a CD of that podcast, and he has a written transcript that I typed out for him, so he can keep that for however long. Yeah, it was a huge honor for me to be able to, for him to entrust me with that. I'm just a guy calling another guy. Like he didn't have to do that, but he did. Thank you. Anyway, yeah. So match game, super match. The prompt was there's a blank, and the contestant got her 3 answers, and someone said there's a tavern in the town, which I guess was a song or something. Someone said something else, and someone said there's a fly in my soup. So that's what she went with. So they revealed the third answer. They revealed the second answer. They revealed the top one. The $500 response is fly in my soup.
Okay.
Somehow, when they were printing the insert that goes into the game board that shows the answer, they spelled soup wrong. They switched the O and the U.
Look at the way they spelled soup. Look at the way they spelled soup.
What?
Look at the way they spelled soup.
This is a class show full of soup.
And there's just this very contagious burst of laughter when they realize he spelled it wrong.
But
it's silly.
And that's what I love about
watch it
game
all
shows.
the time.
And I think we see it more on the older shows than necessarily the newer shows. And I love game shows. I'm not saying that. But there's that rawness you have hope. I mean, I heard about Chuck Willery years ago when he was doing Wheel. He's like, leave the bloopers in or Scrabble. Like, I feel like Chuck's the kind of host of like, I'm going to show you who I am, right? So I like when game shows leave in those moments because they're real and humane, right? So
they so are. They so are. The other one that I watch when I need to be cheered up, there was a show in the 60s hosted by Art James called Say When. It was a self-produced clone of The Price is Right. Like Goodson Todman took that idea and attached to a bunch of other shows. And it was the thing where you pick prizes from a board, you have a target number, the value of what you pick can't go over that certain amount. Anyway, when the show went to color, they were doing live commercials, which was a thing in broadcasting back then. Sometimes the show would stop, the host would take out a product and pitch it for a few seconds, and then put it away and get back to the game. So the product at this point was Peter Pan peanut butter. And this was back in the day when the jars were made of glass. And so Art James talks about how nutritious this peanut butter is. He opens the jar and he says,
and you know, Peter Pan is made to stay good as gold, fresh and moist, any time at all, from the first big swoop off the top of the jar right down to the last little bit at the bottom.
And the knife breaks through the jar. The bottom of the jar falls out.
Make sure you've got Peter Pan peanut butter on hand at bedtimes, all times. Or do you?
But it just brings me so much joy.
Yeah, but it's true, and that's what we wax nostalgic about it, but that's what game shows do. They're these little glimpses into people having the time of their life. I mean, you're talking to someone who twice flew to New York City expressly to see Pyramid. Because there's something about seeing Pyramid, and we've talked about this before. I know that. Well, it's like third time I said we talked about before. You're not going to have me back to 3 in a match. I only have the joke at work is I only have 37 stories. It's just a matter of when you hear them all. So we're at 35 right now. But anyway, but I mean, there's something about seeing it, especially in person, right? Getting to see these jackpots go off, right? It has always been a dream of mine to be in the audience when a top prize go off. And I mean, I feel the closest 2 times got close to it. Number one was Deal or No Deal in the UK. when we got to 5 bucks and the quarter million was still there with Noel, and so was the penny. And I mean, it didn't happen that day, but the excitement in that studio, and I mean, I started writing a book about my game show adventures a few years ago, and one day I'll get it done. But I actually got in contact with that player, and she was nice enough to do an interview for my book because I wanted to sort of talk about different memories. And then being in the audience for a $500,000 question during Meredith's last season at Millionaire. It was
Oh,
insane. It was
beautiful. That was
bonkers
such
insane.
Millionaire was such an incredible environment, and not only from the point of view of being a contestant, but I've been in the audience, a bunch of times.
Yeah.
I was living in Connecticut when the show was in production, so I used to go. I felt like every few months and
I
just go
mean,
sit
I
in the
would do
audience.
you've shown great restraint because I feel like that would have been, oh, there's like a 5 p.m. train. We can see a taping at 7. That would be me.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. I used to whenever the opportunity was there and I wasn't busy with school or work, whatever,
Yeah.
I would go. And yeah, that being in the room when somebody wins money in
Yeah.
that environment is so much fun. It's not as much fun at a place like a casino. You know what I mean? There's that little
No.
like brief
Oh
bit
my
of excitement.
goodness. I
Yeah.
remember when I first, so when I was a kid, the gambling age in Ontario, well, still is wait, am I getting this right? 18? No, it's 18. I can't remember. The point of the matter is the local casino to us an hour drive away. I remember the first time going with a friend, and I remember just watching someone sitting there, and I'm not going to go on some anti-rant about things like that, but attached to one hand, between two fingers, was a cigarette. Attached by a little phone, that was little phone cords that you can sort of like attach things to your hand with. You know what I mean? Like you
Right, right, right.
you put your
Like that
keys on or
coily
whatever.
kind of wire, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Was the loyalty card put into the slot machine on the arm of the second hand, and in the hand of the second hand was $100 bill between two fingers. And I was like, oh, this person can win the lot, but we're not going to cheer for that person. And so, I mean, I'm the person casino people hate. Ooh, 25 cents. I'm pulling the handle. Every time. I have to pull the handle. I don't want to press a button. I want to pull the handle. Please let me pull
Yeah,
the handle.
sure. Sure.
It's Joker's Wild, right? So,
Oh, that's exactly it. That's why I want to pull the handle.
side note, when I met Snoop Dogg this summer at the Olympics, it was very, very brief and I got lucky. I mean, it was Snoop Dogg. It was exciting to meet him. I was thinking, I met the host of the Joker's Wild. This is pretty cool.
Yeah,
So,
right. And I'm sure that's the last thing he thinks people will remember him for. Corey was just talking about that show yesterday. Him and his wife were watching. He and his wife, rather, were
yeah,
watching it at home, and just what a fun take on that format.
yeah,
The Snoop Dogg version of that show was.
yeah.
Hey, speaking of seeing the things, tell me about your experience seeing the Press Your Luck movie.
Yeah. So I heard it was going to be at TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival. And I mean, I didn't have credentials to get into the press screening. That, I mean, probably could have figured it out, but in the nice, honest way, of course. And there's only been 4 screenings, and actually, as we talk right now, the last one is just completed. So I popped in downtown after work and got there. The first thing I saw when I lined up is Whammy was across the street. I was like, "What's Whammy doing here?" And not even on the side of the street where the movie is. So I crossed the street carefully, as we do, as one does. And I went up to Whammy. I said, "Whammy, where have you been, buddy? Been looking all over for you, right?" And got a selfie with Whammy.
Sure.
And my friend who came and saw it with me, he texted unbeknownst to me, he'd also found Whammy as well. I mean, so here's where I'm at. You brought it up publicly in another location, and I feel that this movie has a lot of basis in the graphic novel that would have came out, Spanish language graphic novel 2016, 2017.
2017, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I really, I went for the same reason I went to see Slumdog Millionaire. The thought of hearing game show cues and music on the big screen makes me very, very excited. So, I mean, we were watching it in a like a theater that normally has musicals in it. So we were up like 10 rows from the top, but it didn't matter. Watch an angle, you could still see it. It was really interesting. My problem for me, it wasn't that it was a bad movie. But for me, my problem was the same thing would be for Christian and many other of our friends is we know too much of the story. So there's a certain expectation. They took dramatic license. Um, I mean, I had to do you how much do you want me to go in detail? Because I don't want to be the reason people don't see this movie.
Let's not spoil the movie itself, but I'd love to know what you thought of the movie as a whole.
The best thing you can do, especially if you're a game show fan, is to know they're going to take dramatic license. I was not in the editing bay or the control room when it happened. So I can't tell you what happened. I feel the movie's depiction on it is not what happened, but they use dramatic license. They're using more less sort of press your luck, but more of the Larson story as, um hard scrabble player makes good, right?
Sure.
And I
Sure.
mean, Christian, you'll watch it and you will the need to yell, "Where is standards and practices? What is going on?" will be
Right.
rampant in the movie
Right.
without
Right.
ruining it.
Okay.
I thought it was well done. I mean, off air, we'll discuss a couple of things more. Sorry, listeners, I'm not going to spoil it for you. I will say they take some liberties with the gameplay. But I mean, you need to tell that story. But on the game show fan end of it too is, for example, I'll put a mild little spoiler in, the fact that they recreate the mid-run episode where Peter comes out and says, "Well, there's a first for everything. Michael Larson is still spinning his way." Like they recreated that moment down to the feeling that Larson or that Peter Schmarkin was on a green screen. So I feel it's both a well done story, but also fan service.
Okay. Well, that first of
I
all
would
sounds
go
like
and
fun.
see it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a movie you need to take. Look, if they just did, I think of something like Quiz, where they did the Charles Ingram story for ITV a few years ago.
Right.
I feel like that was something that might have hit the mark more true to form than The Luckiest Man in America, but it doesn't make it a bad movie. It just took some different choices, and you have to tell the story somewhat. Millionaire, a little more on the zeitgeist than Pressure Luck. It was really interesting. The director and a couple of the key creatives came out for a Q&A afterwards, and people were saying things like, "What happened to Michael after the show? Um, why did you choose this show that nobody knows about?" Right? So it was interesting to sort of sit back and see how other people interpreted this. Because I talked to someone before and they said, "Well, you should go see the movie, but if you don't, let me give you the 1 minute summary." And we can give the Larson story in a minute summary. But
Sure.
I will it get wide release? I'm not sure. I'll tell you why. I think none of us knew it was happening. From everything I can see, it's a Colombian production company. And there was
Interesting.
only one name that I recognized because I don't know about you, Christian, but when I first heard this movie showed up, I was like, whoa, how did none of us hear about this?
Well, right. And they
And
had
why weren't
pictures and
we
everything. Yeah.
yeah, why weren't we given the choice to sit in the audience for the crowd shots, right? Like, well, I would have flown somewhere, right? So,
Right, for sure.
but I think it's well done. I think people, whether they're fans of the show or not, will be able to appreciate the lengths they went to recreate the atmosphere, the set, the board, the lights, everything like that. Again, there's a bit of creative license. Maybe the scores aren't exactly where they were. If you're expecting Michael's score at Spin 30 in real life and in the movie to be the same thing, you're probably gonna have a bit of disappointment. But it's called creative license. They say at the start it's for dramatic purposes, and that's what movies do, right?
Well, good luck getting some of the Press Your Luck fans in the world to understand that. But
I mean, we don't get a lot of game show movies, so let's go and enjoy
that's
them.
true. That's true.
Wait a minute,
That's
hold on.
true.
Wait, what do we need? What do we need for the next game show movie? There you go. What's it gonna be? Go.
Let's see. Oh,
And you
I
can't,
would
I feel
love
like you can't pick something super mainstream.
so okay, nothing super
But I
mainstream.
mean, like, for example, we're not gonna say nothing against him, but we're gonna take a Bob Barker biography off the table, for example.
Oh yeah, no. Well, okay. All right. I'll give you mine. Maybe not with all the proper names intact, but I would love a dramatic movie about an entertainer replacing a host that's been on for 40 years and the struggle to get accepted by the audiences and to learn that role and to become that his own version or her own version of that person.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like the drama of becoming the new person and replacing someone and being
making
the
it
shadow
your show
and the comparisons.
and not taking from the...
Right. And I mean, that's something that's played out in game shows. It's something that's played out in talk shows. But that type of story, I think, would be fascinating.
And I should say my highlight, as you may have read when I posted about it, my highlight, I feel, was the actor playing Ed. Because I just felt that he really did a great job. Like, we don't know... The things I know about Ed Long from Press Your Luck are the following.
He played against Michael Larson.
He played against Michael Larson. He
Right.
won his first day. He lost his second day because Michael Larson. He was in the Big Bucks documentary for Game Show Network, and then he played against Janie and Michael's brother and lost again.
Right.
You know, that's the only context I have. But I just felt that the actor playing Ed, and I don't know his name off the top of my head, didn't play to stereotypes. Someone at the screening said, "Why did it feel like it was Ned Flanders?" And I was like,
Yeah.
well, I never saw that, but I mean, I guess you could see, because people look for comparisons, right? So,
Sure.
but I
It's
enjoyed
yours.
it.
Tell me
It
yours.
Yeah, it's funny. I put you on the spot. I'm like, oh, I bought myself 3 minutes, but I haven't done it. I just feel like there's got to be like little fables. I mean, we've seen Quiz Show and with Jack Barry and things like that. I put myself on the spot. So I feel, you know what? There's a mockumentary in the day that someone wrecked the Scrabble cube.
Oh.
I feel like that's, something you could make that absolutely ridiculous and have, greatest weird moments in game show history, right? There could be a
for
series
sure
of that. So
I would love like a document. You know how some documentaries are just made up of clips of interviews? I would love to just see a series of interviews with people who've worked backstage on game shows, on TV shows in general, just telling those stories. You know what I mean? I love broadcasting stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly that. And
Yeah.
I mean, also, I think you and I share a love of Taskmaster, just to, hear something like that, how, like, I know it's origin stories, but I feel like I wouldn't say necessarily for a movie, but just it'd be nice if they threw that in one of the books they release once in a while, right? So.
Oh, sure. Just a little bit of that of how it came to be.
Still waiting for Taskmaster English Canada. Still waiting. But, I watched the UK version for now, right? And New Zealand and Australia, so.
You will be first on that list, I'm sure, when that happens, Ryan. and if not, there will be riots in the streets.
I
Even in
mean,
Canada.
just let me write a couple times.
Tell Us About Yourself, Conversations with Game Show Contestants, is hosted, produced, and edited by me, Christian Carrion, from my studio in beautiful downtown Lancaster City, Pennsylvania. Co-executive producer Cory Anotado, researcher Chuck Donegan. This has been a production of BuzzerBlog, the most popular game show website in the world, in partnership with the National Archives of Game Show History at the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. For more information, visit museumofplay.org. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Christian Carrion. Good night. Tell Us About Yourself is sponsored by bonusround.ca, streaming Canada's classic game shows on demand. Dive into the golden age of television with thousands of episodes of Canadian series that defined an era from anywhere in the world, all for just $1.99 a month. From iconic shows like Let's Make a Deal and Definition to cult classics like Bumper Stumpers and The Mad Dash, bonusround.ca brings you timeless entertainment that's fun, enlightening, and affordable. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, relive the magic of Canadian television history. Subscribe now at bonusround.ca for $1.99 and turn every night into Game Show Night. By Game Show Forensics. Join host Robert McKee and his crack team of forensic game show scientists as they take you on the deepest dives imaginable in a quest to analyze the most detailed minutia of game shows nobody else dares to, or cares to, investigate. Nothing is too whimsical for examination, no semantics too absurd for the research extremists at GameShowForensics.com. Parental discretion is advised. And by The Inn at Leola Village. Nestled in the heart of picturesque Pennsylvania, The Inn at Leola Village is a sanctuary of luxury and relaxation. Indulge in the timeless beauty of their historic suites, each meticulously designed to transport you to a bygone era of elegance and grace. Experience the culinary delights of their award-winning Italian restaurant, where every dish is a masterpiece crafted from the finest local ingredients. From romantic getaways to corporate retreats, The Inn at Leola Village offers a haven for every occasion. Unwind at the spa, stroll through the lush gardens, and let the stress of everyday life melt away. Make your reservation today at theinnatleolavillage.com or call the front desk at area code 717-656-7002. The Inn at Leola Village, an oasis of luxury.